Today's headline is Roanoke Island. The subheadline says, An account by Antelope Fred. This article was written to the editor of the National Tribune. It says, I regret that my life upon the frontier for the past 20 years prevented me from becoming an early subscriber to your valuable paper. Since my return east in November last, I have been a constant reader and shall continue a subscriber until the last roll call. I have been particularly interested in the articles contributed by old comrades under the heading of Fighting Them Over, and especially in the articles referring to the capture of Roanoke Island. As a member of Company A, 9th New York, Hawkins Zouaves, I took a minor part in that engagement and have lately refreshed my memory by referring to my diary. The claim by individual members of the Hawkins Zouaves that to them alone belongs the honor of capturing the masked battery at Roanoke Island is as absurd as that of Comrade E.W. Petty's Company A, 51st New York, that the Hawkins Zouaves never did charge or take the battery at Roanoke Island. That we did charge is a matter of history, the ground over which a portion of our regiment passed being favorable for that purpose, a narrow wooden causeway leading through the swamp to the fort. The fort or battery was located in a swamp surrounded by timber. It consisted of a three-sided earthwork surrounded by a deep ditch, some 8 feet wide, filled with water. For the better protection of the works and to give their guns a clean sweep, the trees had been cut down and lay as they fell, in every conceivable shape, for which we were compelled to advance. An extract from my diary of the movements of the Hawkins Zouaves in that engagement may be of interest to some of my old comrades. At 8 o'clock on the morning of February 7th, 1862, weighed anchor and moved up the Sound. At 11:30, the gunboats began to bombard Roanoke Island. The rebel fleet at first engaged our boats, but were soon driven off. At 4 p.m., the troops commenced to land. We were placed in small boats and towed to the shore by the steamboat Phoenix. Our landing was covered by the gunboats Delaware and Pickett, which continued to throw shell into the woods along the shore. After our regiment landed, we were marched through mud knee-deep a quarter of a mile, when we halted and laid down for the night, raining hard. Shortly after daylight, the troops moved forward, and in 15 minutes after leaving camp, met and engaged the enemy's pickets. Our regiment and the 10th Connecticut were held in reserve until 11 o'clock, when we were called upon to take part. On our way to the front, met several wounded men who were being conveyed to the rear. At 11:30, we entered the clearing in front of a masked battery which commanded the only road in this part of the island. The battery mounted 3 12-pound brass field pieces. Our left wing was immediately thrown across the road, which was flanked on both sides by a deep swamp. We had moved forward but a few yards when the bugle sounded "Lie down." The call was obeyed instantly, and we fell upon our faces, and not a moment too soon, for the 3 pieces were discharged almost in our very faces, and the great big canister went flying over our heads like hail. Major Kimball, our gallant commander, asked permission of General Parke to charge the works. The reply was, "You are the man, now is the time, and this is the place." Charge, Zouaves, charge! The bugle in quick succession sounded the calls, "Rise up, fix bayonet, charge!" And while the 21st Massachusetts and 51st New York stormed the battery upon the flanks, the Hawkins Zouaves charged along the road in the face of the works, at which the panic-stricken rebels fled, and the battery was ours, the New York and Massachusetts colors flying from the parapet amid cheers that shook the forest. From the time of our first entering the field until the battery was taken did not occupy 20 minutes. Lieutenant D. Bevois, Mark May, Jerry Donovan, and George Snow of Company A were wounded, but none mortally. After taking the battery, the 51st and 9th New York proceeded along the road on the east side of the island in pursuit of the enemy. Out upon the Sound, we saw a small steamer and soon discovered 2 small boats putting off from shore. These were called upon to surrender, but they only redoubled their efforts to escape. We then fired upon them when they returned to land. The boats contained several officers who were trying to escape to Nag's Head. O.J. Wise, the commanding officer of the Confederate forces, was mortally wounded while in the boat and died before morning at the house of a Mr. Jarvis, afterward used by our troops as a hospital. O.J. Wise was the son of ex-Governor Wise of Virginia, and before the war was captain of the Richmond Blues. Now, comrades, let me say I am proud of having belonged to the Hawkins Zouaves, that I was with my company in every engagement in which it took part, and it was never detached from the regiment. I kept a daily record, and although a soldier in the ranks cannot possibly know what is passing outside of his immediate vicinity, he can learn from friends in neighboring regiments of the route taken by them and the position occupied by their regiments in an assault upon a battery. Of my own personal knowledge, members of the 51st New York and 21st Massachusetts, as well as members of the Hawkins Zouaves, were inside the battery when I called through the embrasure over the middle gun, and Company A was among the first to enter. If the capture of the masked battery is wholly due to the Hawkins Zouaves, why is it that in the illustration of our charge, printed upon our certificates of membership, there are two national colors and two regimental flags, showing that to other brave men, as well as ourselves, belongs the credit of taking the battery? The brave comrades of the 10th Connecticut and 25th Massachusetts who maintained their positions under a terrible fire in the early part of the day do not to my knowledge lay claim to the capture of the battery, and yet they are as much entitled to do so as the 51st New York, the 21st Massachusetts, or the Hawkins Zouaves, for by the combined efforts of all the troops engaged was the victory accomplished, and to each and every one is the credit due. This article was written by Fred S. Snow, also known as Antelope Fred, of Company A, the 9th New York, Hawkins Zouaves of Deep River, Connecticut. This story came from the great District of Columbia, being reported in the National Tribune of December 27, 1888. Thank you for joining us today. If you want to continue to uncover all of America's lost and forgotten history, then remember before you leave to hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and remember to like and comment below. And we will see you next time on Americana Archives.